Hey guys, this is Yoda. This is my guide to Priory of the Sacred Flame. It's from a 19 that we did on the PTR. It has changed a little bit in Season 3. Obviously, we just had it in Season 2. But there are quite a few changes. And also, I believe we are going to be going right this season. Don't quote me on this, but, this is what we've been doing on PTR, and it seems like it's pretty good. So, few things have changed. Number one, these knights used to be extremely dangerous mobs and like basically the worst mobs that you could ever pull. In season 3 they are quite significantly nerfed. So number one, the first thing you might be able to see is that this impale, let me see if I can find the correct frame to pause it on. The impale now shows you, as you can see here, it shows you who it's targeting. Before, it would just throw it and say it was targeting the tank and it would go on a random person. Now it shows who it's targeting. That person can free personal, they can shadow meld it and it will not recast. They can get their dwarf bind ready, etc. So you can know exactly who the impale is going on. Also, the impale, he dwarfed it really quick because he saw who was on. But before it was 18 seconds, now it's been nerfed to 12 seconds. And the disrupting shout from the knight has been also significantly nerfed. And another thing that has happened is that the knight used to be worth 18 count. It is now worth 25, I believe, which is a massive amount. It's like basically killing a free caster. Speaking of casters, in this pull we have a priest and a conjurer. I'm not 100% sure this is going to be the first pull that everyone does, since people told me the knight is still too dangerous to do with the mini boss. But basically, the priest has two abilities: Holy Smite, which is just a spam bolt that it does, and it also has Greater Heal. You'll never guess what it does. It just heals a mob. Don't let it go off. This conjurer also has two abilities: Flame Strike, which is this swirly on the ground. You can stop it or just dodge, and Fireball, which is just a random bolt. One bolt is usually not lethal, but there is a lot of random group damage going out in this pull, so generally if it overlaps something, that is lethal. Also, there's Guard Captain Suleiman, so this guy has been nerfed. I believe the Thunderclap does the same damage as before, but the Shield Slam, as we just saw that the Thunderclap still does a lot of damage, the Shield Slam has been significantly nerfed. I believe it does like 33% less damage, and it's also blockable. So if you block it, it's basically not an ability anymore. It just knocks you. And if you don't, even if you don't block it, it does 33% less. You'll notice that I am fighting him on the stairs here. I think this positioning is not quite perfect. Ideally, would be bottom of the stairs. The reason I'm fighting him on the stairs at all is that Shield Slam normally knocks you back quite a far distance. But if you are on stairs or if you're getting knocked into a wall, then it will not knock you at all. And that's quite important. So I believe fighting him on the stairs is a very good tactic. You can fight him on these stairs or stairs over there, whatever you want. Just don't fight him in the open ground. Next, we're going to chain some more casters. These sharpshooters have also been nerfed, I believe. The pot shot does quite a bit less damage. So there's less random damage going out. The footmen have not been changed. Chainmail has not been changed. So there's still this leap that applies the bleed. I think the cheese spot that people were using was fixed, but don't quote me on that. We just haven't really been using it. Also in this pull are the footmen. The footmen basically just cast defend at 50%, and it will basically make everything near them take, I believe, 30% less damage until you CC it. And then they cast every 30 seconds from there, from what I understand. This is the defend cast. Basically anything in that circle is taking reduced damage. We will finish off Chainmail. Also, one thing that I kind of glossed over, we skipped the first 4 footmen. You can do that with like Gateway, Fade into Grip, Shroud, or Incap or into Meld is also another one you can use to skip those. If you're not comfortable skipping, just pull them. But generally, it is considered worse to have more footmen in the pull than less, since they do have that defend ability. It's going to make you a decent bit slower having more footmen in the pull. They're also not worth that much count, so pulling less footmen is a good thing. All right, so we are coming up to this area, which is new territory for a lot of people, I think. This night patrol has been changed. It used to go, I believe, like this, like where my mouse is. It used to go here. Now it goes here. So it is avoidable. If you don't want to play this night patrol at all, you can technically not play it. I do decide to pull it since the knights have been nerfed. I believe they're more worth. Also, a priest has been removed from this night patrol. Before, every night patrol had a priest. So it's very easy to pull with another pack that does have a priest in it, since there's one interrupt. There are also some sharpshooters, but with the nerfed bleed and the nerfed pot shot, I feel like this pull where before it was very dangerous, now it is not that dangerous. Another thing we're talking about is that in this area, there are quite a few patrols. Like there's this night patrol, there's another night patrol over here, there's these dogs running around over here, and there's another patrol off screen to the bottom left. It's very important that you keep in mind where all the patrols are when you're fighting. That's actually one of the main reasons I decided to pull this knight very early in the area, because once this patrol is basically off the board, it becomes a lot easier to pull things without worrying about ninja pulls. If the night patrol happens to be like where the first boss is, then you can technically just dip all the way into the mini boss, and the knight won't patrol into you anymore, which is another good change for the quote unquote right route. But since the patrol was good, I do pull him here. Be sure, if you're fighting him like basically exactly in this spot. If you fight him here, then you could pull some dogs or some cats rather, or the cats patrol over here. If you fight him too close this way, then you could pull cats on the other side. If you fight him over here, then there's another night patrol you could run into. So basically, this exact area is where you want to be fighting it. Next, we are heading into Forge Master Damien. So this mob has also been nerfed. Another reason to go right. We're going to CCO Warlings here. I don't think this is wholly necessary, but we do end up doing it. So Heatwave has been changed. He mass dispelled it, but as you can see here, boom. So it does significantly lower damage, and it does 30% lower. And I believe this dot does 30% of the damage. Like the other 30% that existed in season 2 is now as this dot. And the dot is dispellable. So we mass dispelled that one. Basically, that's our quote unquote damage reduction cooldown for the pull. And he also casts Seal of Flame. So when he casts Seal of Flame, he now does fire damage with every auto. And he will also be putting these swirlies on the ground every time he hits you. If you have like Bubble, Spell Word, or AMS, you can stop these swirlies. Be very careful because these swirlies can be kind of hard to see in melee. And then he does melee pretty hard when they're out. So watch out for that, especially the overlap with Heat Wave. You can see we stop the defense there, so we don't do reduced damage. But overall, I would say this mob is quite a bit more tame than it was before. There used to be just swirlies freaking everywhere, infinite ground denial, Heat Wave did a lot more damage, so now I would say the mob is a lot more tame to fight. And that's the pull. When he dies, so most people are used to Elena Emberlands being fought with the boss, but this time, since we killed Formaster Damien, Elena Emberlands will be coming away from the boss. This is very good for a lot of tanks that could not handle Elena Emberlands on the boss, because the boss also has a tank buster, even though it was nerfed. They played even more into that by buffing Elena Emberlands' Divine Judgment. This ability is the most ridiculous tank buster I have ever seen from a non-boss enemy. As you can see here, I'm going to Guardian even though I'm at full health with an 11 million shield. And it's gonna put me at half basically with that shield and with Guardian. So if I didn't have Guardian, even though I had a big shield, I probably would have died. I think from my testing, if this actually does hit you as a paladin with no cooldown, you will literally get one shot. So you need a cooldown for every single one. You can see what that did to me with Arden here. We're gonna show it one more time. Bang. That's what the damage it did with Ardent, by the way. So yeah, this ability is the most ridiculous tank buster in the game. If you decide to fight this with the boss, then you'll have to deal with that, plus the boss's tank buster, plus like she will do this while the boss has another AU ability. So that's another reason for going right in this season. There, I think I used Lay on Hands, and I think I had like a free shield or something. Otherwise, I would have died. So yeah, Elena Emberland's most ridiculous tank buster in the entire game. This is why we have to play it away from the boss. We do pull it with some cats just for free count. Next, we're going to be pulling some footmen into the boss. Before, you were pulling cats and sharpshooters into the boss. I don't believe that is a good strategy anymore, mainly because of the ability we're about to see. Also, by the way, since we went right, we will be fighting Tanner with the boss instead of Elena Emberlands. Tanner does no unavoidable damage except random melees that don't do very much damage, but he does make you kick a lot. His fireball has been massively buffed. He doesn't have the tank cast anymore, which was kind of like a freebie before because he'd dispel. But he does cast a lot of fireballs. Any fireball going off is basically going to be a death on the correct key level. And this is the new ability, Earth Shattering Spear. So he throws this where a player was. Does AoE damage to the group. By the way, if you have Elena Emberlands, this can happen during Holy Radiance, which is probably going to be a wipe in a real key level. Because this is with avoidance, by the way. On the PTR, we have avoidance. So if we have no avoidance, it's almost one-shotting us. And it also causes ground denial. This is the main reason I think you shouldn't pull cats with the boss anymore. The main strategy with the cats is to like stack, not move, and then have like mirror images or a mage bait outside, or like a brew statue. Now you can't really stand still because it's going to make you move. So basically, the new boss is interrupt Ted or dual maul. Make sure you have a good rotation. Make sure someone's interrupting the boss. Make sure you don't randomly die to this nerfed bleed. It used to be 10 seconds, I think. Now it's 7. And don't stand in these swirlies from Ember Storm. There is a decent amount of ground denial and dodging, but in terms of like actual tank and healer check, the boss is much easier by going right. Assuming you can actually manage all of the interrupts. There is still the Savage Mauling, and there is still a bug, by the way. So you can see our mage invises this Savage Mauling, and then he does Battle Cry. So he still has a shield, but you can actually interrupt during the shield. I don't know if that's a bug with like the display or a bug with you actually being able to interrupt. Who knows? But it is what it is. So as you can see, as you get more spears on the ground, the fight does become rather hectic with all the Ember Storms and the ground denial. But I would say this is a much easier version of the boss than if you were to go left and fight Elena Emberlands with the boss, where you could have Holy Radiance plus Earth Shattering Spear at the same time. Plus your tank is just getting like dumpstered by the double tank buster, which one of which was for some reason buffed. All right. After this, we are going to go inside. This cathedral has not changed at all. Everything is basically the same. We are not going to the whole room, I think, because I hadn't yet figured out how to pull everything as a paladin. But basically, the main hard part in this pull is on the tank and the healer, I guess. So there's these Arathi neophytes. They get a buff. As soon as you aggro them, they get this buff. For some reason, I don't know why they do this, but as soon as you aggro them, they get this buff that increases their damage by 50%. And their melee is actually quite hard considering there's a lot of them. So that's the main danger. You need to use a cooldown on pull to be safe from this. Also, there are these Templars. So they have two abilities that both amplify the damage of their auto attack. So they're really scary for tanks. One is Wings. Basically, it's just 30% damage. And they also have this Seal of the Lights Crusader, which makes their auto attacks do magic damage on top of the normal damage. So if you can't block spells or something, LOL warriors, then these mobs are very dangerous. While that's happening, you are going to have 1 to 2 priests. If you pull the left side, there's an extra priest that you need to kick. Pretty simple, especially if you're playing paladin. Or even if there's 2 priests, you just do kicks into AoE stops or whatever. Obviously, that is a lot to manage in this pull. And we do also have paladins. So these paladins cast Sacred Toll, which does this damage with all avoidance to the whole group. We have the easy version here with 1 less paladin and 2 less Templars. So it's kind of easier to deal with in this video, but if you do end up pulling the whole room, it is very difficult, especially without lust, but we are going to be lusting this. Also, one thing to worry about, if your tank is not particularly good against magic damage, so, warrior again, then Sacred Toll is going to be doing a lot of damage to you. On top of all the tank damage, make sure you have a cooldown running the entire time. And if you're really bad at this pull, like if your class is really bad, make sure to let your healer know, because yeah, it's gonna be super tough for a lot of tanks doing this pull. All right, so I do decide to chain pull. One thing you will notice is that during this entire pull, I basically had a cooldown running the entire time. But if you ever do have to have a gap, it's good if you can track these Templars buffs and then have your gap when they do not have the wings buff. Or if you're a warrior, don't have the gap when they have this magic damage hit buff, etc. So once this middle part, once the first 2 packs die, once like their side dies, more pulls come down. One thing to note is that the second wave of mobs that comes down, each pack features 2 casters. There's a priest and a conjurer, whereas before there was only a priest in every pack. So the second wave of mobs is significantly harder to interrupt. That's why in this run at least we decide to just do like a chain pull, where we kill the casters and then chain. I think in a later run that we did find a way to manage our interrupts, basically involving Moment of Glory. where we pulled both packs at the same time and just CC one caster. I kick two casters and the groups kicks the other one. But these schemes are going to be quite difficult for early season runs, especially. I would recommend just chain pulling, unless you have like the season 2 comp. If you have grip beam and a silent sigil, then it's all good. Just pull whatever you want. The other thing you need to worry about is this consecrate that the knights drop, or the Templar. Yeah, I think no, sorry, the paladins drop. Don't stand in that; you will die. And they do make you move a lot. So if you're a paladin, you have to permanently change your consecrate, etc. All right, and that's the boss. Next, we're going to fight Bear and Braunpike. We do have, again, the easy version of this boss since we're playing not only DPS Death Knight, but also Prot Paladin. First thing he does is hammer. He drops these hammers. Basically, you want to drop them together and then walk away so you don't have to worry about dodging them. Any strategy, in my opinion, that involves like actually looking at where these hammers are is probably a bad strategy. You just want to drop them and then like dip to the opposite side of the room. Then he does this Cascada's Shield. This is, I think, a one-shot check on a real key level. And also the cadence is always the same. You drop the spinny hammers, then you walk here or away from them, then he throws the shields at you, which explodes, so you walk away from them, and you walk towards this thing, this fountain, which is a soak. So since we have DK, you can just AMS and run through it. Every time you run through, it does ticking damage, so make sure your healer is ready. Make sure you're looking at the group's health before you run in. Don't like kill someone with it. But as a DK, you can run in and not get any stacks. As a non-DK class or something without an immune, every time you run in, you will get one stack of the debuff, and that debuff ticks pretty hard. Certain immunities work in weird ways. For instance, Cloak will remove the stacks, but you will get stacks while you have Cloak on. So you want to like hit twice and then Cloak. Basically, you could soak two that way. I think Turtle still gives you stacks for some reason, so just make sure you know exactly how your immune works. Fortunately for us, AMS and Bubble do both work the way we want them to, so we just go AMS Bubble, AMS Spellword, AMS Bubble, and no one actually ever gets stacks in this comp. Generally, as a tank, you can take 2 stacks pretty safely. 3 stacks would be very dangerous. Make sure you have a cooldown running the whole time. And the boss also does have his own version of Wings, which happens to overlap with when you would normally have debuffs, I think. So we'll go to when you actually cast it. I am tracking the buff. So here, if I were to soak this without AMS, then I would be having like 2 stacks. And then he would cast Vindictive Wrath, which is his version of Wings, makes it auto attack hit harder. So that would actually be quite dangerous. And you would need to have a defensive cooldown for that. Fortunately, obviously, we have the immune god comp, so we're not worried about that. But if you are not playing exactly this comp, then that is something you would need to worry about. Anyway, it's basically the same movement the whole time. You drop off the spinny hammers, walk away, then he spawns the fountain. You drop these shields away from the fountain, and then you dodge toward the fountain, and then you can soak properly. Also, there is a kick. If that ever goes off, it's basically a full heal on him and a wipe on you, so don't let that happen. All right, after that, by the way, there is another change here. With the new waypoint system, the checkpoint when you kill him is not up here, it is in the boss room. So, a little bit unfortunate, but whatever. Also worth noting, since there is a good thing about that system, that once the first boss dies, if you do happen to die in the lust pull afterward, you can release and you don't have to run back. Your release, you're like basically right there. This pull is the exact same. There's 2 casters, 2 Templars, and 2 knights, or two paladins rather. I don't know why I keep calling them knights. Just heal through, don't die to the tank hits, and kick. This area has changed quite significantly. A lot of the priests, I believe this footman used to be a priest in the front, and this and one, I think there was also another caster in the back. Maybe it was a footman in the front and a priest in the back. I don't really remember what it was. But now every pull that had 2 casters now has 1 caster and 1 Templar, and every pull that had 3 casters basically now has 2 casters and 1 Templar. So it is significantly easier to do interrupts. There's exactly 2 casters or 1 caster. That does favor Prot Paladin a lot. But it is significantly easier to do interrupts on these pulls now since there's less casters, and there's just like a Templar that is hitting the tank, but the tank is not really under that much pressure. So in my opinion, this change makes the pull significantly easier. Anyway, as a quick review of what the mobs do, the Paladins are the same mobs from downstairs: Sacred Toll and Consecrate. Templar hits the tank. This Risen Mage is different than the Conjurers, so he still casts Fireball, but instead of Flame Strike, he will cast Fireball Volley. You'll never guess what happens if that goes off. Don't let it happen. Also, when they die, they still explode, but the explosion has been nerfed, and you can stop the explosion damage by stunning it before it dies. I think we don't actually stun this one. We'll see. Yeah, it does explode. Before, that would basically be a death on our priest, but since we have Avoidance and the explosion has been nerfed, he lives. There are also these light spawns, so we actually haven't encountered any light spawns yet in our run since we went right. But they basically have one main ability, which is the light beam purification. You just pick someone and just does ticking damage to them. You can meld it, and it will stop casting it and not recast. Also, when they die, we'll fast forward to when it dies. It does this burst of light on the ground. So you want to not have any mobs in there. If any mobs are in there, they heal for quite a bit, and if you're in there, then you die. This footman is similar to the outside one, except it doesn't have defend, so it basically doesn't have any abilities, but it does also explode when it dies. As you can see, this pole is now missing a conjurer. So it's two priests and a Templar to interrupt. Much easier. Also, generally in these pulls, if you do get the purification, be very scared, especially if it's overlapping with Sacred Toll here. You can see that almost kills our healer. And I think that's all of the changes in this area. We are going to do this mini boss pull here. One thing to note, by the way, if you do tag this pull by pulling the mini boss, the aggro range is the ninja pull range is much longer than if you don't pull him. We are going to be doing like something similar to what we did in the season 2, which is pulling 3 priests, like the 2 next to him and 1 corner pack, and are going to go all the way in the corner to avoid the patrol. The patrol is like kind of scary. Has been nerfed since the mages don't explode for as much damage, but we're still going to avoid it and just pull all the way in the corner. If you do decide to do this pull, make sure everyone and all of their pets is tucked all the way into the corner. Otherwise, the patrol can like get over here and ninja pull. If the patrol ever ninja pulls, it's basically a wipe. This is like a very difficult mini boss. As you can see, we have this debuff on us, so he's ticking damage on us the whole time. We also have Blazing Strike, which is a tank buster that is spell blockable, and it also applies a dot. Very difficult if your tank is not good at self-sustain. And also, whenever a friend of Footman dies, it explodes. And when he dies, he also explodes. So if you're like barely staying alive when he explodes, then you're probably all gonna die. Okay, I think we needed the middle patrol for count, so we just pulled it. Then we pull the rest into the boss. So this boss has not changed. It's basically the exact same boss. There is one change, which is Blinding Light used to be LOSable. So if there was an overlap, you could like tank the boss over here and then LOS like over here on the stairs. Cannot do that anymore. Also, I don't know if anyone has figured this out yet. Even though this was like a season 2 dungeon for the entire time, and it wasn't it was in the MDI, people tried really hard to figure this out. No, I still don't know why. Sometimes on pull it does the overlap. So the overlap is, we'll show it here. So when it casts Inner Fire, it puts a debuff or buff on herself. It does ticking damage, and then Blinding Light is AoE damage when it goes off. So sometimes when you pull the boss, it does Blinding Light first, which is significantly easier for your healer debuff, or to deal with. But this time when we pulled it, even though no one interrupted the boss, it's going to cast Blinding Light while she has the buff, so it's significantly scarier. By the way, Blinding Light also means look away, don't look at the boss. Like, you have to turn your character around, or you'll get stunned / disoriented. I think it's a disorient. Holy Flame is just dodge, and there's also these Purify beams. She will pick someone, and then that beam will basically just chase them, try to draw a nice shape and not take up too much room. And one other thing about this boss, so this is the thing that people learned last season, the Blinding Light cast respects Holy Lockout. So if you interrupt the boss at the correct time, you can delay the Blinding Light cast to not land, basically, during the Inner Fire. I think we're going to try to do that here. Yeah, I think we just did it. So this is where I'm calling it. So the boss has Inner Fire, and Blinding Light is queued in 2 seconds, as you can see. But the boss is casting Holy Smite. It's usually, almost always happens, by the way, on the 3rd Inner Fire cast. Don't ask why I know this so well. So we have our Warlock kick here, and then the Warlock lockout I think is 6 seconds, so she can't cast Blinding Light for 6 seconds. So even though it's queued up right now, so that would have been an overlap, the boss is not casting it, so there is no overlap, and then it's much easier to deal with as a healer. Now Blinding Light is up, but she doesn't have the buff anymore, so it's not nearly as scary, and they've been successfully desynced. After that, once the boss hits 50%, she goes into intermission. You need to break this shield pretty quickly. While this shield is happening, everyone's taking ticking damage, and if the shield is up for every I think 5 to 10 seconds, I'm not actually sure what the timer is. Every amount of time that the shield is up, respawns these ads. Also, you do have to kick. I did kick there. And these ads, by the way, are extremely dangerous. They fixate people. It's not around aggro, and they melee just like any mob that would melee the tank. So it's basically a one shot. And they also tick AoE damage around them. So make sure you're kiting. Basically, as soon as I'm able to, I start bringing the boss to the back of the room. There are also many abilities that work on those, like Sigil of Misery, Earthroot Totem, etc. Also, one thing to note, as soon as phase 2 starts, the boss is in her like overlap queuing, so it will be inner fire into blinding light. And as I mentioned before, if you never kick, then on the third inner fire, you can interrupt in a way that there won't be an interrupt, or that there won't be an overlap. I believe it's coming up here. So here's inner fire. We'll show it here. Holy flame. And then okay, technically this time she didn't do it. I think it's because I was kicking her the whole time with Avengers Shield. But usually on the third one, there will be a slight gap where she casts Holy Smite before Blinding Light, and you can use long interrupt, like a long lockout interrupt, such as Mage or Warlock, and not get the overlap. Anyway, that is going to be the Priory Season 3 guide. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.